The prevalence of untruth and uncertainty during the COVID-19 epidemic. Anthroposophical basics. Sometimes it is frustrating, other times it is surprising and even interesting to see what is happening in human souls these days. All of this has come to light in the context of a viral disease called COVID-19, which is spread on a physical level by a coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2. I will write about this in a series of articles, the first part of which, searching for, clarifying the physical facts, and illuminating them from a spiritual point of view, as well as the spiritual developments, using Rudolf Steiner's findings and descriptions. I try to apply for another part about every 1-2 weeks. I have to refer to the title of the first part right away. After all, he must have thought to some readers, what kind of epidemic? It's not an epidemic. Some say it would have been an epidemic if we had exceeded the weekly number of patients given the flu, but we didn't exceed it. Certainly not in Hungary. I do not want to refute facts and sledges, especially if they are true. What we call an epidemic is, to some extent, a matter of public agreement. I do not even consider it relevant whether or not this disease is now called epidemic. But if some people have really had a similar idea, this is exactly what will be discussed here. But it's not just about that, it's also about disagreements over the virus. My aim is to use common sense, anthroposophical impartiality to point out certain facts, as well as processes that have gone in the very wrong direction lately. Let's start with some anthroposophical basics. Rudolf Steiner probably never used the word virus in his lectures, so only records of bacilli, bacteria, parasites, microorganisms, etc. have survived. He spoke. Thus, for example, he spoke at length about one of the workers' lectures on influenza bacillus, Gribacillus, which was completely in line with the wording at the time. He was not talking about the flu virus, because at that time the virus and the bacterium were just being distinguished from each other and given a different name. Incidentally, the word virus has been used for viruses since 1898 in scientific circles. He may have known about it, but he could have known about it from his own mental observation, which is referred to in the following sentence, from bacilli and similar beings. Well, viruses are just like viruses, externally because they are invisible to the human eye. In the following quotes from Rudolf Steiner, we also mean viruses by bacilli and bacteria. No parasitic virus or bacterium can cause disease. In diseases where bacilli and bacteria are present as companions, there are deeper causes as the primary cause than the appearance of bacilli. It is quite different to say that bacilli are present and appear as a consequence of the disease, as if we would look for the primary cause in the bacilli. These are extremely interesting facts about the intestinal botany and zoology of the human body, but it has no significance for the disease other than a characteristic at most. It is a characteristic that one can say the disease is present. The human body has the opportunity to develop these interesting little animal or plant forms on such a medium, but nothing else, not more than indirectly. That is, the alleged pathogens do not cause any disease, they are at most secondary, involved in the development of the infectious disease, more precisely, in its appearance. After all, these are physical beings, and the physical symptoms of a disease can only appear if these physical beings enter and multiply significantly in the physical body. To that extent, secondary causes. However, since there is always a primary cause, which is never a bacterium or a virus, the presence of large numbers of these parasitic microorganisms in the body is indicative of a related disease in the body and is now physically controlled by these viruses or bacteria. May also appear in symptoms. Parasitic viruses and bacteria are not pathogens, but they are involved in the physical spread. Nevertheless, and for this reason, research into science based on science and rooted in a materialistic worldview is valuable, even if it does not penetrate to the real causes. We don't have to say anything about bacillus theory. Bacillus theory is very useful. From the different ways in which bacilli perform here or there, of course, we can gain different knowledge. In order to make a diagnosis, we can usually learn a great deal from this. By no means do I want to convey that I recommend for the mother to be inactive. This is how it can be further developed if we apply the aspects of anthroposophy to it. Elsewhere, he put it this way: of course, we must not say that the study of bacilli is not good for anything. It can be helpful for anyone who knows that humans are exposed to disease, just as we know that frogs squeal when they fall. But the child should not be poured out with the bath water, and it should be said that bacilli need not be examined. Viruses are primarily creatures of Ahriman. Everything that unfolds its existence in other organizations and breeds in them for its own benefit is the Luciferian or Ahriman creature. All parasites can be traced back to Luciferian or Ahrimanic origins. However, the moment we get to beings whose scenes are in other living beings, plants, animals, or humans, here, if there are creatures like bacilli words that exist in the animal or human bodies, namely the human body, we are in any case dealing with the creatures of spiritual beings, but with the creatures of Ahriman. The new coronavirus, which is causing so many diseases and deaths in the world these days, has really turned our lives upside down. Well, some are arguing about that, too. It's about to be discussed soon. More specifically, it's not the virus, it's ourselves. More precisely, not by ourselves, but by Ahriman, that is, our decision-makers. In particular, I would like to first draw attention to how effectively Ahriman's lying and inciting spirit can work in this situation today. Ahriman is a spiritual being 2-3 degrees higher than man, whom the Bible calls Satan. Ahriman is a being who can be termed as a spirit left behind by an earlier degree. He is busy creating obstacles for man and his guardian angel at all times. He tries to lead us astray and paralyze us. He constantly wants to deceive and illuminate the outside world. Our physical body and health are also external in this respect. Lying, misleading, distorting, wrong judgment are the essence. He is the spirit of darkness, which is also manifested in the fact that he wants to convince man that there is only a material world, and that something called spiritual comes only from material existence. Ahriman is the enemy of light, of spirit. It is fundamentally with these intentions and characteristics that it participates in human development. He is the one who planted fear in man. He is the chief spiritual supporter of materialism. Much of the disease exists through his activities. In what follows, I will talk mainly about his lies, his efforts to falsify judgment in the context of the new coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, disease. Then there will be PCR tests and more. July 18, 2020. Source: Ferencz Keller www.magismares.hu